Tonight, one of the architects of the Labour Party now facing a criminal investigation over the Epstein files scandal. Peter Mandelson resigned from the House of Lords after days of revelations over his links to the convicted paedophile. Today, it emerged that Sarah Ferguson took her daughters to meet Jeffrey Epstein just days after his release from prison. While in Washington, Bill and Hillary Clinton agree a deal to give evidence over their relationship with a billionaire.
The Clintons just agreed to testify. I do think Mandelson should testify, whatever he knows or what he saw. I'm sure he has a lot to say.
One man and his intricate web of influence. Survivors tell me they are being exposed while the powerful are being protected. Those conversations are coming up. Plus, US forces shoot down an Iranian drone in the Middle East as tensions between the two countries escalate. And why police believe the mother of an American TV presenter was kidnapped from her bed. That's all coming up on The World with me, Jonathan Samuels. Hello, a very good evening. We've known about Jeffrey Epstein's intricate and far-reaching web of influence for a long time. Presidents, princes, billionaires, his network crossed borders. And now, nearly 7 years after his death, as millions of files are released, some of those who benefited from his friendship are paying the price. First up, a man who served every Labour leader in the past 40 years. Peter Mandelson now faces a criminal inquiry after he leaked market-sensitive information. And for the first time, a member of the royal family, Andrew's brother Edward, spoke out in support of survivors.
I think it's all really important always to remember the victims and who are the victims in all this.
And what about the paedophile's links to Vladimir Putin? The Kremlin insists there is no relationship. Emails show Jeffrey Epstein was keen to meet him. Coming up, we'll have analysis from our Moscow correspondent. But first, our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, reports on how this scandal ended Peter Mandelson's political career.
Gone the first time, gone the second time, gone for good.
The Clerk of the Parliament has today received notification from Lord Mandelson of his intention to retire from the House.
Peter Mandelson has left politics and Parliament for the last time, renouncing his seat in the House of Lords rather than waiting to be kicked out. All over his repeated lack of candour about his 20-year-plus relationship with the financier and paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Are you embarrassed about Peter Mandelson's actions? Who's to blame for bringing him back?
Keir Starmer's anger heard behind these doors. Mandelson is a disgrace who let the country down, the Cabinet was told. His threat to pass a law to strip his peerage was the final straw. Fury over a relationship between Mandelson and Epstein that others were asking about in much more depth long before Keir Starmer.
In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
He was in jail at the time for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
And my knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
But emails released by the US government over the weekend revealed there was so much more. Payments to Mandelson's husband worth thousands. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing from him. But also alleged market-sensitive intelligence passed straight to the paedophile financier within seconds of Mandelson receiving it. Condemnation from all sides.
They have made a grave error of judgment.
I think the Prime Minister himself needs to come clean and tell us what he knew and when.
It is quite outrageous and people will be quite disgusted by it.
We shouldn't have had to wait all these months before he was able to sidle out very quietly and very disgracefully and resign without being sacked.
Downing Street has already handed over details of key emails to the police. Now Scotland Yard are looking at whether the law was broken.
The news that the police have launched a full-blown inquiry into Peter Mandelson will incredibly be welcomed in the building behind me because they are desperate to take as tough a line as possible to insulate themselves from the massive fallout from the departure of Peter Mandelson. Because the charge that these guys are facing is as toxic as they come in politics, that they took a hear no evil, see no evil approach to appointing a man who has been a fixture of the Labour family for more than 4 decades.
After Prime Minister's questions, the Tories could try and force the disclosure of vetting documents prepared before Mandelson's appointment, dividing Labour MPs from number 10 in the process. The embarrassment continues. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
So, a resignation and a criminal inquiry, and now the royal family has also been drawn into the scandal again. Prince Edward was asked about his brother's links to the convicted paedophile, as our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills reports.
They have been trying to stop Andrew from being a distraction. That, it seems, is impossible.
It's all really important always to remember the victims and who are the victims in all this.
Absolutely.
A lot of victims in this.
Andrew's younger brother, Edward, forced to face questions during his official trip to Dubai. Sticking, it would seem, to the official line after this statement in October, which said the King and Queen's thoughts and utmost sympathies have been and will remain with the victims and survivors of any and all forms of abuse. Now, while Andrew and Sarah Ferguson have continuously denied any wrongdoing, with Sarah also suggesting she was being blackmailed by Epstein, this latest release of files have again given us a bigger picture of the relationship between the Yorks and Epstein, and the fact it continued well after his conviction of those paedophile charges. One of the latest emails also shows that Sarah took her daughters Beatrice and Eugenie to Miami to see Epstein 5 days after he was released from jail. In one email from the 24th of July 2009, Leslie Groff, who's Epstein's assistant, writes to him saying, regarding the flights for the Duchess and the girls from Heathrow to Miami and from New York to Heathrow, we were able to get the girls on economy round trip and the Duchess on business round trip. Do I have your permission to purchase these tickets? 3 days later, on the 27th of July, Sarah Ferguson emails Epstein saying, what address should we come to? It'll be myself, Beatrice and Eugenie. Are we having lunch? To which Epstein replies, yes, vegetable lasagna or anything else you'd like. Chef here from Paris. All this extra information has led to more demands for both Sarah and Andrew to share what they saw or knew.
Probably isn't strictly a legal question because the allegations that are coming out are linked to the Epstein papers. Whether there is enough in there to substantiate any criminal allegations against them, it's a none at this point. But there's also the reputational issues. They may want to cooperate. They may see it as their duty if they can shed any light on what's happened, but they would have to get some more information about what it is they're being asked to either answer questions on or give evidence about.
The call's just growing for them to ultimately think of the victims. A message, it seems, now repeated by Andrew's own brother, aware of the potential damage that this scandal is doing to his own family. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News.
Well, I've been speaking to Lisa Phillips, who first met Jeffrey Epstein in 2000. She believes Peter Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten Windsor should be forced to give evidence to US Congress.
I was a young fashion model in New York City in the early 2000s, and I booked a big modeling job, went down to the Caribbean for the shoot with a crew, and I was there with another model. She was this tall, beautiful Polish girl, and we had a day off, and she said, you know, I have this friend, he's great, he owns an island nearby, he helped me get my visa to work in the United States, and she just, you know, said it was this amazing person. So I was like, okay, well, we have the day off. I'll go with you. So this person sent us a boat, and I went over to the island just to hang out there for the day with her, and met some other girls there, some young girls there. Saw them like frolicking in a pool with an older gentleman, and then went to dinner, and that's when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
And when did the abuse begin?
Well, I mean, it was a few hours I was on the island, and he spoke to me for quite a few hours at the dinner. We hung out there just talking. He asked a lot of questions about myself and my family, you know, getting to know me, wanted to know my ambitions and my goals. One of the young girls came to the door and said, you know, Jeffrey's ready for his massage, and argued with the girls for a little bit because I don't know how to do a massage. And they said, well, you have to, he requested you. So I went with the other girl who brought me to the island. I went into the room to do this massage, and the massage turned into sexual assault. And so we kind of ran out of the room and went back to where we were sleeping that night, waited for the dawn to come up, and got on the boat, and we went back to the island where we had the photo shoot.
And that's something that has stayed with you for all these years?
I didn't say anything for 15 years. It wasn't until he died where I in that moment, felt free enough to start to explore what happened to me. And I reached out to the survivors, and our stories were all the same, every one of us. So there was some comfort in that. And every year we find out more and more information. So I don't know how comforting it's been, as we find out more information. It gets a lot of, it gets hard to understand.
And you have talked about a man in the pool. You believe that to be the former Prince Andrew, is that correct?
Well, during the dinner, Jeffrey had asked me where I grew up, and I said, well, I lived in Oxford, England, growing up. And he said, would you like to meet a prince? And at that moment, the man from the pool showed up and said hello, and I got to meet the prince, Prince Andrew, and then he left.
What do you make of the latest revelations in the Epstein files that were dropped over the weekend? I'm sure you've had a chance to look at them yourself, to read some of the detail. What do you make of it?
Well, there's a lot of dark and disturbing things in there. There's a lot of people that myself and survivors saw in this time frame that are in the files. A lot of people that were mentioned. We're not really seeing 100% wrongdoing per se, because, there has to be a lot of connecting the dots and flight logs and dates and abuse and things. But we are getting a clearer picture of the perversion and the sadism that was going on during that time with a lot of these men.
And a lot of redactions. Is that hugely frustrating?
Yeah, of course. A lot of redactions of people, powerful people, politicians and such that were there. We should be able to see who those people are. And they're not redacting so many of the survivors' names, their IDs, their emails, their testimonies when they testified, as a Jane Doe. This is very upsetting that they're toying with a lot of the survivors that have been more vocal and have come forward. They're really, really messing with them. It's been pretty disturbing to them.
And more revelations about Andrew, and indeed a former government minister, former ambassador in Washington, Peter Mandelson. Neither have agreed to testify, to give evidence in the United States. What do you make of that?
Well, the Clintons just agreed to testify, so I'm hoping once they do, that they're going to be made to. I do think Mandelson should testify, whatever he knows or what he saw, because he saw a lot, and he knew about Epstein's perversion, and he was around young women and girls, so I'm sure he has a lot to say.
We should say both men absolutely deny many of the allegations made against them, but you do believe that they should give evidence and really make clear what they did or didn't know.
Yeah, of course. Everybody wants to hear that. That's time for him to clear his name. I think just knowing from that time frame, I don't know anything about Mandelson, but just knowing from that time frame about Andrew, that he has some explaining to do. So I would be the first person there to want to hear that testimony.
You're a mother now, and you are clearly continuing to campaign. You're going through the whole process of having to appear on television, to be quoted. It's not easy, especially when it's something so personal. Are you doing it almost because you're a mum?
Yeah, of course, that has a lot to do with it. The survivors right now that are speaking out, majority of us have children the same age as when we were abused. Most of our kids are early teens to, early adulthood. So Yeah, you always kind of do it for the kids. And through these new release of files, we're finding out there's a lot more kids involved. And so this sex trafficking ring didn't stop when Epstein died. And so we want to try as hard as we can to put a stop to it.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on and talking about the latest release of files and just say thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Lisa Phillips speaking to me a little earlier. Andrew has denied any allegations of wrongdoing, and so far we've found no evidence in the files of his presence on Jeffrey Epstein's island back in the year 2000. Some breaking news to bring you now. Thames Valley Police is assessing a claim that a woman was sent to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's home in Windsor by Jeffrey Epstein in 2010. The encounter allegedly took place at the Royal Lodge, the former Duke's residence at the time, when the woman was in her 20s, her lawyer told the BBC earlier this week. Andrew has not commented on the latest claims, but has previously denied any wrongdoing relating to Epstein. A Thames Valley Police spokesperson said, "We are aware of reports about a woman said to have been taken to an address in Windsor in 2010 for sexual purposes. We are assessing the information in line with our established procedures. We take any reports of sexual crimes extremely seriously and encourage anyone with information to come forward. At this time, these allegations have not been reported to Thames Valley Police by either the lawyer or their client." Well, let's remind ourselves of those allegations against Peter Mandelson. Tom Cheshire has been going through documents.
Peter Mandelson has said that he didn't know the extent of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes until after his death. They did have a very close relationship. Here, Mandelson emails Epstein and say, "You are the only person who knows everything about me. Don't go away." In this email, Peter Mandelson, he is talking about the latest political situation, saying to Jeffrey Epstein in 2010, "We are praying for a hung parliament." And then he jokes, "Alternatively, a well-hung young man." And this is another email from Mandelson to Epstein at the height of a political moment, a political crisis. He emails him saying, "Finally got him to go today. We can't say for sure, but the next day, the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown resigned."
Well, let's go to James Matthews in Washington. Hi, James. These emails show, don't they, just how close the relationship was between Epstein and Mandelson. The calls for the former ambassador to give evidence in the States will continue to grow, as they will for Andrew.
You're absolutely right, Jonathan. Yeah, I spoke to a member of the House Oversight Committee and he made that very clear. It doesn't matter who you are, what your status is, we want to hear your testimony. The whole thing is astonishing, Jonathan. It was to many people long before today. Bear in mind that before Mandelson was appointed to the job of UK ambassador to Washington, DC, our man in Washington, the plum job in the diplomatic service, it was already in the papers. The FT and others were reporting about his associations with Jeffrey Epstein, reporting that he had stayed in Epstein's apartment while he was in prison. I remember in May, we got a call from the embassy. Mandelson was a few months into his tenure here, and I suspect probably thought he had the infrastructure around him, that he was suitably rehabilitated. And we said, look, or we were told he's giving a speech on trade. You can ask him a couple of questions at the door if you want. Of course, we asked him about his association with Epstein, and at that point, he didn't apologise. He spoke of his regret. At that point, clearly a man trying to put his finger in the dike. But of course, it's all very much overtaken him, and we are where we are today. But that hangs in the air, that request from Congress people who believe that Mandelson can answer for himself, but of course, potentially provide answers for the likes of Lisa Phillips, other survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, because Mandelson was so close that he appears to be very much networked into Jeffrey Epstein and the acquaintances and the kind of orbit in which he existed. And bear in mind that Mandelson, his big result here was the US-UK trade deal. So there will be pertinent questions about that, given the kind of secrets that that he appears to have been leaking over the years.
Of course. James, perhaps we can turn our focus now to the Clintons. Bill and Hillary will testify later this month as part of an investigation into Epstein. The former president had a well-documented relationship with the financier from the late 90s into the early 2000s. Important, of course, to note that neither he nor the former First Lady have been accused of wrongdoing in relation to Epstein's crimes. Among the pictures to be released of Bill Clinton is this one. He's seen sitting in a swimming pool. One woman's face has been redacted. The other woman appears to be Ghislaine Maxwell. Sky News has established that this image was taken at a luxury hotel in Brunei. Pictures from the most recent tranche of material appear to show Bill Clinton aboard a jet. In his 2024 memoir, the former president wrote, "The bottom line is, even though it allowed me to visit the work of my foundation, travelling on Epstein's plane was not worth the years of questioning afterward. I wish I had never met him." Back to James in Washington. So the Clintons, James, have agreed to testify at the end of the month, I think. How big a moment is that going to be?
Well, it's going to be huge. But you know what, Jonathan? See, looking at these pictures, they were, of course, released with the first tranche of material. And the White House, or the Department of Justice, has been cute, critics say, in terms of how it has managed the release of these documents. Critics, again, cynics, would say that they have taken the heat out of this story in a managed way, you know, releasing them in stages, a drip publication with Bill Clinton and others apart from Donald Trump very much out in front. And looking at the media coverage of the Epstein files today in the States, it's far less than what you are seeing in the United Kingdom. The story is running very low here, almost as if it's an old story. And when Donald Trump says he's been absolved, then many people actually wouldn't argue with that. He's certainly not playing high in the headlines at all as they relate to the Epstein files. But the Clintons appearing before this committee, it will be huge. It is going to be a box office month. Already we've got the Clintons lined up. Also, Ghislaine Maxwell, remember, she's going to give evidence to this committee. The Clintons, they bent over backwards to try to avoid appearing before the committee, remember, but the committee members, Republicans, certainly stood firm, supported by Democrats who do not want to be seen to be voting against anybody giving evidence because they want to give the presentation, or the appearance at least, of complete transparency. What it does, of course, Jonathan, is set an example to others who are in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit, and of course, they include none other than President Donald Trump.
Indeed. James, for the moment, thank you. Well, I've also been speaking to Jess Michaels, who says she was raped by Jeffrey Epstein in 1992. She was scathing in her criticism of the Department of Justice. Have a listen.
I met Jeffrey Epstein in 1991. I was a professional dancer, very successful, traveling the world, modeling, and I was raped by him in 1991 at 22 years old, and it completely changed my life. It destroyed all sense of self and confidence and trust I had in myself and in the world. It devastated me. I lost relationships, career, everything.
I'm so sorry for what you had to go through. Do you feel we are any closer to justice now that this latest batch of documents, and there are many, many documents, have been released?
That's a great question. And the hope was that this release and the efforts to get the Epstein Transparency Act passed, which was an act of Congress, that was our hope. Our hope was that justice would finally happen, that perpetrators would be tried, would be investigated more thoroughly and brought to justice. And that did not happen. What we're seeing with the files is that there are extreme redactions and then extreme neglect to redact. I mean, a 5-year-old could have done a better job redacting these files with color-coded crayons. It is an embarrassment that our Department of Justice put this out as their very best work. It is shocking the damage that this Department of Justice has done with the way that they have released survivors' personal information out there when they literally had one job, which was to redact survivors' names.
Do you think it's incompetence, or do you think there's something else going on?
You know, I was willing to give the benefit of the doubt that it was just sloppy incompetence, but now it feels almost like it's purposeful to intimidate survivors, to punish survivors, to discredit survivors, and then not to hold the perpetrators actually guilty. Can I show you something really fast? I think this is really important. So this is one example in 3 million files. There was a survivor's statement, which was 7 pages long. And of those 7 pages, and her name was appropriately redacted, but in those 7 pages, 4 of them are blacked out. Does that feel like justice for you?
Yeah, you make the point very clearly indeed, you know, with that example. 2 names over on this side of the Atlantic have featured heavily. You'll know this. The former Prince Andrew, of course, and also Lord Mandelson, who used to work for the government. What do you make of the headlines regarding those 2? Perhaps Andrew, first of all, more revelations of his closeness to Epstein and potentially some of the women that Epstein knew.
I can only make a general statement because we don't get all the same headlines that you do in the UK. So my very general but simple statement is anyone that spent any significant time with Jeffrey Epstein should be called to testify before Congress. We have a lot of missing pieces. We have people that knew him for very long stretches of time, and we haven't heard from them at all. And it just seems incredible to me that none of these men that have been mentioned have ever been brought in for investigation.
Yeah, another name, Lord Mandelson. It's been announced tonight there's going to be a police investigation into things that went on while he was working for the government and yet still in touch with Epstein, a financier, of course, as well as being a paedophile. Do you feel that you'll ever get justice? Do you think you'll ever reach a conclusion that you're happy with, given the circumstances?
I have a very difficult time trusting our own government and Department of Justice at this time. It's incredibly difficult to trust that there is any care for survivors at this point. So I believe a lot of the work that we're doing right now, the advocacy to try to get justice, will not be felt as much by us, but hopefully it will be felt by future generations.
Yeah, I mean, after all these years, you know, it's still so tough for you. And just finally, Andrew's brother, Prince Edward, today was asked about the whole affair and said very simply, it's really important always to remember the victims. Were you pleased with that sentiment?
I think it's thoughtful, and I think that I wish more people listened, including our Department of Justice. I hope that our government and Department of Justice can start to look like they actually are thinking of survivors, because that's just not what's happening right now. Not at all.
We really appreciate you coming on and giving us your thoughts on the latest release of files. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Jess Michaels speaking to me a little earlier. Well, let's turn now to Jeffrey Epstein's attempts to court Russia's president. Vladimir Putin is named hundreds of times in the documents released by the US Justice Department. Our Moscow correspondent Ivor Bennett has the details.
What has Vladimir Putin got to do with Jeffrey Epstein? The Russian president's name appears more than 1,000 times in the latest files. His inclusion doesn't imply any wrongdoing, and there's no evidence the two ever met. But boy, it sounds like Epstein wanted to. The latest emails appear to reveal repeated attempts by the convicted sex offender to court the Kremlin leader. And there's even an audio file in which Epstein can be heard coaching someone on how to approach Putin.
So the key would be, I would think about, not decided, that at some point you can say, look, I would send a note to Putin, say I'm going to leave government in March 14th. I'm going to be in Scandinavia, or I plan to be in Northern Europe. We should have dinner. That's it. No more. It has to be very short.
The first substantive mention of Vladimir Putin in these files is from September 2011. An unnamed contact refers to a meeting Epstein said he'd arranged with Putin later that month. Now, there's no evidence that actually happened, and there are no more details. But from 2013 onwards, the emails show that Epstein made several bids to meet with Putin through Norway's former Prime Minister, Torbjørn Jagland. In May that year, Epstein emailed Jagland saying this: "I know you are going to meet Putin on the 20th. He is desperate to engage Western investment in his country. I have his solution." He then adds, "I recognise that there are human rights issues that are at the forefront of your trip. However, if it's helpful to you, I would be happy to meet with him sometime in June and explain the solution to his top priority. I think this would be good for your goals." But it appears that meeting never happened. After pestering Jagland to follow up with Putin's chief of staff, Epstein then complains that he's heard nothing back. In July 2014, though, he tries again. In an email, a contact tells him, "I wasn't able to convince Reed to change his schedule to go meet Putin with you." Epstein replies, "Bad idea now after plane crash." That's a reference to the Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 that was shot down over eastern Ukraine 3 days before that email was sent, killing all 298 people on board. But it doesn't sound like Epstein was put off for long, because a year later, July 2015, he's at it again. In another email to Jagland, he says, "I still would like to meet Putin and talk economy. I would really appreciate your assistance." And then there are more attempts in 2016, 2017, and finally 2018. In June that year, a one-line email to Jagland once again: "Would love to meet with Putin." So there's no smoking gun here. And when asked about the files, the Kremlin said it did not receive any offer from Jeffrey Epstein for a meeting with Vladimir Putin. Still, it's interesting to see how the Russian media is covering this story, because, in short, they're not. It's given very little mention at all here, and when it is, the focus is elsewhere, on people like Bill Clinton, Peter Mandelson, and the Crown Princess of Norway. So even though there's no evidence or implication that the pair ever met, Vladimir Putin's inclusion in the Epstein files is clearly not something Moscow wants to highlight.
Fascinating. Ivor Bennett there for us. Stay with us on The World. Still to come, US forces shoot down an Iranian drone, saying it was aggressively flying towards a huge aircraft carrier.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Hello again, you're watching The World. US forces have shot down an Iranian drone that the White House says was aggressively approaching the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea. It threatens to heighten tensions even as both sides prepare for planned talks later this week. President Trump's threats of strikes on Iran have been met with warnings from its supreme leader of an all-out regional war. Live to our US correspondent, David Blevins, who's in Washington for us. Do we know what Iran's intentions were here?
The short answer is no. The US Central Command says this vessel was about 500 miles off the Iranian coast when it was approached by a drone with what they are describing as unknown intent. An F-35C stealth fighter was then launched from the USS Abraham Lincoln to shoot it down in self-defense, they say, as approved by the president himself. Now, no US military personnel were injured, no damage was caused to any of their vessels, but it's certainly not the context the Americans would have hoped for as the president's special envoy Steve Witkoff heads towards talks with Iran's foreign minister on Friday. They are scheduled to take place in Istanbul. But Donald Trump is still pursuing a diplomatic solution to all of this, according to his press secretary, Caroline Levitt. This is what she had to say about it.
Well, look, I just spoke with Special Envoy Witkoff, and these talks, as of right now, are still scheduled. President Trump is always wanting to pursue diplomacy first, but obviously it takes two to tango. You need a willing partner to achieve diplomacy, and that's something that Special Envoy Witkoff is intent on exploring and discussing. As always, though, of course, the president has a range of options on the table with respect to Iran. As commander-in-chief, I think they learned that quite well last year with the strike in Operation Midnight Hammer, which was wildly successful and obliterated their nuclear capabilities. But those talks will continue later this week as far as we're concerned right now.
Now, in a separate incident, US military say Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps forces harassed a US-flagged, US crewed merchant vessel in the Strait of Hormuz today, the world's busiest shipping channel. The crew requested military support that de-escalated the situation, we're told, and that ship continued on its way. Of course, all of this comes as the US continues to build up its military presence in that region amid this tension between Washington and Tehran. President Trump has said he will strike Iran with greater force than he did last summer if it doesn't agree a nuclear deal and stop killing protesters. But Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says that would spark a regional war.
OK, thanks, David. This is The World. Next up, the son of Norway's crown princess enters his plea on rape charges as his trial begins in Oslo.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
Hello again, you're watching The World. Now this is rather disturbing. US investigators say there are increasingly worrying signs that the mother of TV personality Savannah Guthrie has been taken against her will. Guthrie, a host of NBC's Today Show, has asked for prayers to help bring back 84-year-old Nancy, who was last seen on Saturday night at her home in Tucson, Arizona. There are signs of forced entry at the house, but police aren't saying whether they think the disappearance is potentially targeted or random. They're also staying quiet about evidence gathered at the home.
We have a lot of work in front of us. We have a job to do. And we have someone's life who is in jeopardy. And so job number one is we got to find her, and we got to work hard to do that. I understand there's great attention on this, and rightfully so, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for it, because it has generated a lot of leads for us. And so we're tracking those leads, and we're doing things with evidence that you would expect us to be doing.
To Scandinavia next. The son of Norway's crown princess has pleaded not guilty to rape charges at the start of a trial overshadowing the royal family's image. 29-year-old Marius Borg-Høiby, who has no royal title, is accused of several other offences, including abuse and transporting drugs. Here's our Europe correspondent, Siobhan Robbins.
A rape trial is rocking Norway's royal family. The son of the crown princess is in court accused of 38 crimes centred around the abuse of women. Meanwhile, his mother is facing backlash about her connection to the late American sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein. So what's going on? This is Marius Borg-Høiby. He's the eldest son of Norway's future queen, Crown Princess Mette-Marit. The 29-year-old has no official royal title or role, but his arrest and trial has shaken the family. He's accused of multiple offences, including domestic violence, assault and transporting marijuana. Now, he's pleaded not guilty to the most serious 4 alleged rapes between 2018 and 2024. But he's admitted several driving offences, an aggravated drugs charge and breaking a restraining order. This is one of Norway's biggest trials in years, with people queuing around the block to try to get a seat in the Oslo court. Until recently, Marius Borg-Høiby was free pending trial, but on Sunday, police confirmed he'd been arrested on new allegations of assault, threats with a knife, and violating a restraining order. They can now keep him in custody for up to 4 weeks. He's thinking of appealing. As well as her son's trial, the Crown Princess is under scrutiny after it emerged she was mentioned in hundreds of files released in connection with sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. In a statement, she said she must take responsibility for not investigating his background more thoroughly, adding, "I showed poor judgment and regret having any contact with Epstein at all. It's simply embarrassing." As she deals with ongoing backlash over that, her son's trial's expected to run into March. If he's found guilty of the most serious crimes, he could face up to 10 years in prison.
Our Europe correspondent Siobhan Robbins reporting there. You're watching The World. Next up, Houston, we have a setback. NASA speaks out about pushing back their moon mission and explain why.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories,
but with more lively debate,
more in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
Plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines. The Wrap. Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Welcome back. A 13-year-old boy is being hailed a hero in Australia after swimming in rough seas to save his mother and younger brother and sister. They were swept out to sea on paddleboards and kayaks south of Perth in Western Australia on Friday. Austin Appleby swam back to shore, battling waves and swells for 4 hours before staggering onto a beach to raise the alarm.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming. And then finally I just made it to shore, and I hit the bottom of the beach, and I just collapsed. And then after that, I had to sprint 2 kilometres to go get to the phone.
We made it, and we're alive, and that's the most important thing. And I have all 3 babies. Excuse me. all 3 of them made it. That was all that mattered.
What a hero. Now, President Trump is speaking about the Epstein files. Let's listen in.
I didn't know about it, but I really don't know too much about it. I know who he is. It's too bad. Speaking of Epstein, I will say this. A reporter named Wolf and Epstein conspired. This just came out yesterday in the millions of pages of documents, how crazy this is. Conspired against me in order to fight like hell to make sure I lose the election. That's the only thing that was mentioned about me. Now, about Democrats, some really bad stuff, but about me, that Wolf, whoever Wolf is, he wrote a book, a couple of books, and Epstein conspired against me. Did you know that, Mr. Senator?
I did know that.
They conspired against me, so I lose the election. Or worse. So that takes care of Epstein as far as Trump is concerned. But you got a lot of Democrats out there that are very much involved with Epstein. But I'll be honest with you, you got to get back to running the country, too. Millions and millions every week. You know, when Epstein was alive, nobody cared about him. When he's dead, they care about him. But it's really a Democrat problem. It's not a Republican, it's a Democrat problem. The only problem Republicans have is that we have to get back to, number one, running our country, and then number two, very importantly, letting the public know what a great job we're doing. We have the greatest economy in the history of the world. We have $18 trillion being spent. The record was $3 trillion many years ago, not by us, by another country. I won't say the country. Yeah, please.
Did you read those new files, Mr. President? Have you been briefed on Savannah Guthrie's mom missing in Arizona?
I think it's terrible.
Would you commit to more federal agents, like helping out on the search?
Sure, I would. I'm going to call her later on. I think it's a terrible thing. I always got along very good with Savannah. Very unusual situation, but we're going to find out. Yeah, what do you want?
On the Epstein files, you talked about Democrats who were in there. Elon Musk was also in there, and so was your Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and correspondence that he had with him. Did you read those new files that were published by the Department of Justice?
I didn't. I have a lot of things I'm doing, a lot of things I'm doing. I don't know. You mentioned two names. I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure they're fine. Otherwise, it would have been major headlines.
A lot of women who are survivors of Epstein's are unhappy with those redactions that came out. Some of them, entire witness interviews are totally blacked out. Do you think that they should be more transparent?
With the fact that they thought they released too much. You know, I heard that, and you tell me something else. No. I think it's really time for the country to get onto something.
So Donald Trump there fielding questions. He says the Epstein files are a Democrat problem. He then said we have to get back to running the country and telling people how well we're doing. He also said he's going to speak to Savannah Guthrie about her missing mother.